The wind howled across the white ice of Antarctica. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pulled her thick coat tighter as she walked toward the strange readings on her scanner. The machine beeped faster and faster as she got closer to a spot that looked just like all the other ice around them. "This can't be right," Elena said to her team. She had been studying energy patterns for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like this. The scanner showed massive power coming from deep under the ice. It was like finding a nuclear reactor buried in the middle of nowhere. Her assistant, Dr. Ben Murphy, checked his own equipment. "The readings are the same on all our machines, Elena. Something big is down there." Elena looked at the endless white landscape around them. They were hundreds of miles from any research station. No one lived here. No one had ever built anything here. Yet the scanners said there was technology under their feet that was more powerful than anything she knew about. "We need to drill down," Elena decided. "I want to see what's causing this." The drilling took 3 days. The team worked in shifts, going deeper and deeper through layers of ice that had been frozen for thousands of years. Elena barely slept. The energy readings kept getting stronger as they went down. On the 3rd day, their drill hit something hard, not rock or dirt, but metal. "Pull it up," Elena ordered. Her heart was beating fast. When they brought up the drill, pieces of strange metal came with it. The metal was black and smooth, unlike anything Elena had seen before. It felt warm to the touch even in the freezing cold. "This metal doesn't match anything in our databases," Ben said after running tests. "The atomic structure is impossible. It's like someone took regular metal and twisted it in ways that shouldn't work." Elena made a decision that would change everything. "We're going bigger. I want a full excavation site here." It took 2 weeks to bring in the heavy equipment. Elena had to call in favors from universities and research groups around the world. She told them they had found unusual mineral deposits. She didn't tell them about the energy readings or the impossible metal. When they finally cleared away enough ice, Elena stood at the edge of a hole 30 feet deep and stared at something that made her question everything she knew about history. A massive metal structure stretched out under the ice. It was perfectly smooth and covered in symbols that looked almost like writing. The structure was huge, bigger than a city block, and it hummed with power that their instruments could barely measure. "Elena," Ben whispered, "this thing is old, really old, but it's still working." That night, Elena sent an encrypted message to her contact at the military. She had worked with them before on classified projects. This was bigger than anything she could handle alone. Commander Jake Morrison arrived 2 days later with a team of Special Forces soldiers. Jake was tall and serious, with gray eyes that missed nothing. He had spent 20 years in dangerous places around the world, but he had never seen anything like what Elena showed him. "What do you think it is?" Jake asked as they stood looking down at the metal structure. "I think it's a machine," Elena said. "A very old machine that someone built and then hid under the ice. The question is who and why." Jake's team set up a secure perimeter around the site. They brought in equipment that could cut through the strange metal and ways to get down to the structure safely. Elena was the first person to actually touch the ancient structure. The moment her hand made contact with the metal, symbols on its surface began to glow with soft blue light. The humming sound got louder. "It's responding to human contact," she called up to Jake. "This thing was built for people to use." Over the next few days, Elena's team mapped the structure. It was shaped like a giant ring, 50 feet across, standing upright in a chamber carved from solid rock. The symbols covered every surface, and they all glowed brighter when humans were near. Jake found something that made him call his superiors immediately. On one wall of the chamber, carved deep in the rock, were images that showed humans using the ring-shaped machine. The humans in the pictures looked just like modern people, but they wore clothes that looked ancient. "Elena," Jake said quietly, "I think humans built this thing. But that's impossible. This ice has been here for thousands of years, and the humans in these pictures have technology we don't even understand today." Elena ran more tests on the metal and the symbols. Every test gave her results that shouldn't exist. The metal was stronger than anything science could make. The symbols seemed to be some kind of advanced writing system that contained mathematical formulas she couldn't solve. Then Jake made a discovery that changed everything. He was examining the symbols on the ring when he noticed something. Elena, come look at this. Some of these symbols look like DNA patterns. Elena studied the symbols Jake had found. He was right. Mixed in with the strange writing were patterns that matched human genetic code. Not just any human genetic code, but specific patterns that were very rare. Jake, Elena said slowly, I need a sample of your blood. The test results came back an hour later. Elena stared at her computer screen in shock. Jake's genetic markers were a perfect match for the DNA patterns carved into the ancient machine. What does this mean? Jake asked. Before Elena could answer, the entire structure began to vibrate. The symbols glowed brighter than ever before. The humming became a deep musical tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The ring-shaped machine was waking up. Elena and Jake backed away as energy began to build inside the ring. The air started to shimmer like heat waves, but it wasn't hot. Something else was happening, something that science couldn't explain. Elena, Jake said, his voice tight with tension. What did we just activate? The shimmer inside the ring grew stronger. Through it, they could see shapes that didn't belong in an ice cave in Antarctica. Massive shapes that looked like buildings, or ships floating in space. Elena grabbed her scanner. The readings were off the charts. Jake, I don't think this is just a machine. I think it's a doorway. The shimmer cleared, and they could see through the ring as if it was a window. On the other side was a place that definitely wasn't Earth. Structures floated in what looked like space, but there were people moving around them. People who looked human. Jake stepped closer to the ring. As he did, a voice spoke from the other side. It spoke in perfect English. Welcome home, Commander Morrison. We've been waiting for you. Jake stared through the glowing ring at the person speaking to him. It was a woman in a uniform he didn't recognize, but she looked completely human. Behind her, he could see other people working at control panels that looked like they belonged in a science fiction movie. Who are you? Jake called through the portal. I'm Admiral Lisa Carter of the Shadow Fleet, the woman replied. And you're Commander Jake Morrison, one of the bloodline carriers we've been monitoring. We need to talk. Elena stepped up beside Jake, her scanner beeping wildly. The energy coming through this portal is incredible. It's like looking at a fusion reactor, but completely stable. Admiral Carter smiled. Dr. Rodriguez, your work in quantum physics has been watched with great interest. Both of you need to come through the portal. Earth is in more danger than you can imagine. Jake looked at Elena. As a soldier, he had learned to trust his instincts, and something told him this woman was telling the truth. Is it safe to go through? Perfectly safe, Admiral Carter said. The portal technology has been used by humans for over 2,000 years. You'll find the trip quite comfortable. Elena checked her equipment one more time. The reading suggests the portal creates a stable wormhole through folded space. In theory, it should work. She looked at Jake. But this is completely beyond our science. Jake made his decision. We're coming through. Stepping through the portal felt like walking through cool water. For a moment, Jake felt weightless, and then his feet touched solid ground on the other side. Elena followed right behind him, clutching her scanner. They found themselves in a huge room with walls made of the same strange metal they had found in Antarctica. But this room was alive with activity. People in uniforms moved between control stations, and through large windows, Jake could see an incredible sight. They were inside a massive space station. Outside the windows, Jake saw other stations connected by bridges and tubes. Ships that looked nothing like anything Earth had ever built moved between the stations. Everything was huge and beautiful and completely impossible. Welcome to New Terra, Admiral Carter said. The heart of humanity's shadow fleet. Elena was staring at her scanner in disbelief. The artificial gravity, the air systems, the power generation. This is technology hundreds of years ahead of Earth. Admiral Carter led them through corridors filled with people who all looked human, but wore uniforms Jake had never seen. The technology around them was smooth and elegant, but clearly very advanced. How many people live here? Jake asked. New Terra has a population of about 50 million, Admiral Carter replied. But we're just one of the larger stations. The Shadow Realm contains hundreds of human settlements. They entered a large briefing room with a table that could hold 20 people. The walls showed images of space, but Jake realized they were looking at real views from cameras placed around the station. "Please sit," Admiral Carter said. "What I'm about to tell you will be hard to believe." Jake and Elena sat down. Elena was still checking her scanner, amazed by everything around them. 2,000 years ago, Admiral Carter began, a group of humans on Earth discovered that a terrible enemy was coming. They called themselves the Devourers, and they destroy entire civilizations. These ancient humans built the portal network and created the Shadow Realm as a refuge. "Wait," Elena interrupted. "You're saying humans had this technology 2,000 years ago? That's impossible. We were barely using iron tools then." Admiral Carter touched a control on the table. The walls showed images of ancient Earth, but not the Earth Jake knew from history books. This Earth had cities with impossible architecture and flying vehicles. The humans who built this were more advanced than your current civilization, Admiral Carter explained. But they saw the Devourers coming and knew they couldn't win a direct fight. So they hid their most advanced technology and their best people in the Shadow Realm. Jake studied the images on the walls. What happened to the humans who stayed behind? They survived, but they lost most of their technology. Over time, they became the civilizations you know from history. The advanced humans were hidden away, preparing for the day when the Devourers would finally reach Earth. Elena was taking notes as fast as she could. How did they create this pocket dimension? The Shadow Realm exists in folded space-time, Admiral Carter said. Time moves differently here. While 2,000 years passed on Earth, we've had much longer to prepare. We've built fleets and weapons specifically designed to fight the Devourers. Admiral Carter led them to another room where they met Captain Ryan Brooks. He was a tall man with kind eyes who looked like he could be Elena's neighbor, except for his impossible uniform. "Captain Brooks commands our flagship," Admiral Carter said. "Would you like to see her?" They took a transport that moved through tubes connecting the stations. Elena pressed her face to the transparent walls, staring at the construction around them. "How big is all this?" she asked. "The Shadow Realm contains over 300 major installations," Captain Brooks replied. "We have shipyards, research stations, training facilities, and homes for our people. We've been building for a very long time." The flagship was enormous. Jake had seen aircraft carriers, but this ship was 10 times larger and shaped like nothing he had ever imagined. It looked both elegant and deadly, with smooth curves that somehow suggested incredible power. "The Guardian's Dawn," Captain Brooks said with obvious pride. "She's powered by zero-point energy and armed with weapons that can bend space itself." Inside the ship, Jake saw technology that made him feel like he was living in a dream. The crew members worked at stations that responded to thought and touch. The ship's artificial intelligence spoke in a pleasant voice and seemed to understand complex commands instantly. Elena was practically bouncing with excitement. The energy systems, the material science, the computer technology. This is centuries beyond anything we have. "We've had a long time to develop it," Captain Brooks said, "and we knew exactly what we would need to fight." They gathered in the ship's main briefing room where Admiral Carter showed them images that made Jake's blood run cold. "These are the Devourers," she said. The creatures in the images looked like a nightmare mixture of machine and biology. They were huge, dark, and wrong in ways that hurt to look at. Their ships were even worse, twisted metal structures that seemed to eat light itself. "They consume entire civilizations," Admiral Carter explained. "They take the technology, the resources, and the life force of every world they conquer. They've destroyed hundreds of species across the galaxy." "And they're coming to Earth," Jake said. It wasn't a question. "They're already here, Admiral," Carter said grimly. "Our sensors detected their advanced scouts entering your solar system 3 days ago. The main fleet will arrive within the week." Elena looked up from her notes. "How do we fight something like that?" Captain Brooks smiled, and for the first time since Jake had met him, the smile looked dangerous. "With weapons they've never encountered before. The Devourers have faced many species, but they've never fought humans who have spent 2,000 years preparing specifically for them." Admiral Carter activated another display. It showed hundreds of ships hidden throughout the Shadow Realm. Each ship was different, but they all had the same elegant and deadly look as the Guardian's Dawn. The Shadow Fleet contains over 800 warships, Admiral Carter said. Each one is designed with weapons and defenses the Devourers cannot counter. We know their weaknesses because we've been studying them for millennia. Jake studied the display. As a military man, he could see the careful organization and planning that had gone into building this fleet. You're going to reveal yourselves, to defend Earth. The time for hiding is over, Admiral Carter agreed. But we need Earth's governments to be prepared, and we need people like you to help coordinate the defense. Elena looked up from her scanner readings. Jake, this is incredible. They're not just more advanced than us. They're offering to save our entire planet. More than that, Admiral Carter said. We're offering to restore humanity to its true place in the galaxy. The Devourers have been the reason humans have stayed hidden for so long. Once we defeat them, the entire galaxy will be open to us again. Jake thought about Earth, unaware and unprepared for what was coming. Then he looked at the incredible technology around him and the people who had spent centuries preparing to save his world. What do you need us to do? Admiral Carter's smile was full of confidence. Help us save humanity and then help us reclaim the stars. The attack came without warning. Jake was in the White House Situation Room when the first report started coming in. Strange objects had appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving faster than anything Earth had ever built. Within hours, they were approaching the outer planets. President Karen White looked tired and scared as she listened to the reports from her military advisors. How big are these ships? General Patricia Hayes, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, checked her data tablet. The largest ones are over 20 miles long. Our satellites can barely get clear images, but what we're seeing doesn't look like any technology we understand. Jake had been back on Earth for only 2 days, barely enough time to convince the president and her top advisors that the threat was real. Most of them still didn't believe his story about the Shadow Fleet. Madam President, Jake said, I need to contact Admiral Carter immediately. Earth's military won't be enough to stop these things. Before the president could respond, alarms started ringing throughout the building. A young aide rushed into the room with a tablet showing news broadcasts from around the world. They're attacking major cities, the aide said breathlessly. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, they're all under assault. The screens in the Situation Room switched to live feeds from around the world. What Jake saw made his stomach turn. Massive dark ships hung over Earth's greatest cities like storm clouds. Beams of energy struck buildings, but instead of exploding, the buildings simply stopped working. Lights went out, cars died, and even military equipment shut down completely. They're draining our power, General Hayes said in shock. Every piece of technology those beams touch just dies. Jake watched as Earth's military tried to fight back. Fighter jets launched missiles at the alien ships, but the moment the weapons got close, they simply stopped working and fell out of the sky. Tanks fired their guns, but the shells became useless metal the moment they entered the energy fields around the alien vessels. It's worse than Admiral Carter warned, Jake muttered. He pulled out a communication device that Captain Brooks had given him. It looked like a simple radio, but it was connected to the Shadow Fleet through the portal network. Admiral Carter, this is Jake Morrison. The attack has begun and Earth's weapons are useless. We need the Shadow Fleet now. Admiral Carter's voice came through clearly despite being in another dimension. We're already moving, Jake. Tell your president that the cavalry is coming. President White looked at Jake with desperate hope. Are they really going to help us? Before Jake could answer, something incredible happened. All around the world, new portals began opening. They appeared in the sky above every major battle, shimmering circles of light that grew larger and larger. Elena Rodriguez was at the Antarctic research site, monitoring the original portal when the global activation began. She watched her instruments go crazy as hundreds of portals opened simultaneously across the planet. Ben, she called to her assistant, are you seeing this? The entire portal network just activated at once. Through the original portal, Elena could see massive ships moving into position. The Shadow Fleet was preparing for war. Colonel Alex Turner was the first Shadow Fleet commander to bring his ship through a portal above Earth. His vessel, the New Terra's Hammer, emerged above New York City, just as a Devourer ship was preparing to attack the United Nations building. "This is Colonel Turner to all Shadow Fleet units," he said over the communication system. "Weapons free. Show these creatures what happens when they threaten humanity." The new Terra's hammer fired its first shot, and Jake watched through the Situation Room's monitors as something impossible happened. The weapon didn't look like a beam or a missile. Instead, it seemed to twist space itself, creating a spiral of energy that struck the Devourer ship. The alien vessel, which had been shrugging off everything Earth could throw at it, suddenly found itself wrapped in what looked like a cage made of light. The ship tried to break free, but the more it struggled, the tighter the cage became. "What kind of weapon is that?" General Hayes asked in amazement. "A reality anchor," Jake replied, remembering Captain Brooks's explanation. "It locks the target in normal space-time so they can't use their energy-draining abilities." More Shadow Fleet ships poured through portals around the world. Each one was different in design, but they all moved with the same deadly grace. Jake watched as they engaged the Devourer forces using weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics. One Shadow Fleet vessel fired what looked like a bubble of distorted air. When it hit a Devourer ship, the alien vessel aged 1,000 years in seconds, its hull cracking and falling apart. Another ship used a weapon that created tiny black holes, pulling Devourer vessels into crushing gravitational fields. Elena watched the battle through her portal and took notes as fast as she could write. The Shadow Fleet weapons operate on completely different principles than the Devourer technology. The aliens can drain conventional energy, but they can't counter weapons that manipulate time and space directly. In the Situation Room, President White stared at the screen showing Shadow Fleet vessels rescuing Earth's cities. "Those are human ships. They look so advanced. They've had 2,000 years to prepare for this exact fight," Jake explained. "Every weapon, every defense system was designed specifically to counter Devourer technology. The tide of battle was turning rapidly. Devourer ships that had seemed unstoppable were being systematically destroyed or captured by Shadow Fleet forces." But Jake could see that the aliens were adapting quickly. "Admiral Carter," he called through his communicator, "the Devourers are changing their tactics. Some of their ships are retreating while others are doing something different." "We see it, too," Admiral Carter replied. "They're calling for reinforcements. The main fleet is coming earlier than we expected." Elena's instruments detected massive energy signatures appearing at the edge of the solar system. "Jake, something big is coming. Really big." The new Devourer ships were enormous, each one larger than entire cities. Worse, as they approached Earth, Jake could see that they carried something that made his blood run cold. "Admiral Carter," he said urgently, "please tell me you can see what I'm seeing." "We see them," Admiral Carter replied grimly. "The Devourers have brought corrupted human technology. Ships that were once ours, twisted by their influence." Through the portals came more Shadow Fleet vessels, but these were different from the first wave. They were larger, more heavily armed, and they moved with the coordination of a fleet that had trained together for centuries. Captain Brooks' voice came over the communication system, speaking to both the Shadow Fleet and Earth's forces. "All units be advised. The Devourers have absorbed technology from other human colonies they've conquered. They know our tactics and our weaknesses. This fight just got much harder." Jake watched as the corrupted human ships engaged the Shadow Fleet in battles that spanned the entire solar system. These weren't the easy victories of the first wave. The corrupted vessels knew how to fight against Shadow Fleet technology. Elena made a disturbing discovery as she analyzed the energy patterns of the corrupted ships. "Jake, these ships were built using the same portal technology as the Shadow Fleet. The Devourers have learned how to use human dimensional science." "That's impossible," Jake replied. "Admiral Carter said the Shadow Fleet was hidden from them." "Not hidden well enough," Elena said grimly. "Some human colonies must have been discovered and conquered. The Devourers absorbed their knowledge." The battle for Earth had become a battle for the future of all humanity. Shadow Fleet vessels fought desperately against enemies that used twisted versions of their own technology. Earth's population watched from below as the sky filled with impossible weapons and reality-bending combat. Jake stood in the Situation Room and realized that the Shadow Fleet's centuries of preparation might not be enough. The Devourers had learned and adapted, and they had turned humanity's greatest strength against itself. "Admiral Carter," he said into his communicator, "we need a new plan. The original strategy isn't working." "Already working on it," Admiral Carter replied. "Jake, we need you to do something dangerous. We need someone to go through the portal network and contact other human strongholds. If any others still exist, we need their help now." Jake looked at President White, who nodded grimly. "Go," she said. "Save our world." Elena looked up from her instruments. "Jake, if you're going through the portal network, you need to know something. The Devourers are trying to corrupt the portals themselves. If they succeed, they'll be able to invade the Shadow Realm directly." Jake grabbed his gear and headed for the portal. Behind him, the battle for Earth raged on, while ahead of him lay a journey through dimensions to find humanity's last hope. The Shadow Fleet had emerged, but the war was far from over. Jake stepped through the portal network and found himself in a place that defied understanding. He was standing on a platform that seemed to float in space, surrounded by hundreds of glowing doorways that led to different parts of the galaxy. Elena was with him, carrying a backpack full of scanning equipment. She had insisted on coming, saying that someone needed to document what they found. Jake was glad to have her along. "The portal network is like a subway system for the entire galaxy," Elena said in wonder, checking her instruments. "Each doorway leads to a different human settlement. They chose a portal that Admiral Carter had marked as safe and stepped through. Jake expected to find another hidden human colony, but what he found instead made him stop in shock. The portal led to a ruined city floating in space. Buildings that had once been beautiful were now twisted and dark. The air was breathable, but it smelled wrong, like metal in decay. "This place has been corrupted," Jake said, checking his weapon. "The Devourers were here." Elena's scanner was beeping frantically. "Jake, I'm reading human life signs, but they're wrong somehow. The energy patterns don't match normal humans." They explored the ruins carefully, finding evidence of a great battle. Scorch marks covered the walls, and pieces of both human and alien technology were scattered everywhere. But the most disturbing thing was the silence. A city this large should have some sound, but there was nothing. Then they heard footsteps. The person who came around the corner looked human at first glance, but something was very wrong. His skin had a gray tint, and his eyes reflected light like an animal's. When he saw Jake and Elena, he smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp. "Welcome," the corrupted human said in a voice that sounded like it came from underwater. "The Devourers have been expecting you." Jake raised his weapon, but the corrupted human moved faster than should have been possible. Before Jake could fire, 3 more corrupted humans appeared from hidden positions around them. "We were like you once," one of them said. "We fought the Devourers. We thought we could win, but they showed us the truth. They showed us how much better we could become." Elena backed closer to Jake, her scanner showing energy readings that made no sense. "Jake, these people are still partly human, but something has changed their basic biology." The corrupted humans began to circle them. "You don't understand yet," their leader said. "The Devourers don't just destroy, they improve. They make us stronger, smarter, better than we were." "By turning you into monsters," Jake replied, keeping his weapon ready. "By freeing us from the weakness of pure humanity," the corrupted human corrected. "Your Shadow Fleet friends haven't told you the whole truth. They're not trying to save humanity. They're trying to keep us weak." Elena's scanner picked up something that made her gasp. "Jake, there are thousands of them in this city, all corrupted but still alive." The leader of the corrupted humans tilted his head as if listening to something Jake couldn't hear. "The Devourer ships around your Earth are sending a message. They want to meet with you. They want to show you what they showed us." "Not interested," Jake said firmly. "You will be," the corrupted human replied with certainty. "Because they have something you need to see. They have the truth about the Shadow Fleet and why they really hide in their pocket dimension." Before Jake could respond, the portal behind them began to glow. Admiral Carter's voice came through Jake's communicator. Jake, you need to get out of there immediately. That colony fell to the Devourers 50 years ago. Everything there is compromised. The corrupted humans laughed, a sound that made Jake's skin crawl. Run back to your shadow friends, their leader said. But know that we'll be waiting when you're ready to hear the truth. Jake and Elena ran for the portal and jumped through, just as more corrupted humans began emerging from the ruined buildings around them. They found themselves back in the portal hub, breathing hard and shaken by what they had seen. Elena, Jake said, what did your scanner pick up about those people? Elena checked her readings with trembling hands. Their DNA is still human, but it's been altered. The Devourers have found a way to change people at the genetic level while keeping them alive and conscious. And they said the Shadow Fleet was hiding something, Jake said grimly. They tried 3 more portals and each one led to the same thing. Human colonies that had been found by the Devourers and either destroyed or corrupted. Some were empty, ruins. Others were full of twisted humans who served their alien masters willingly. But the 4th portal was different. Jake and Elena stepped through and found themselves in a massive space station that was very much alive and uncorrupted. Humans in uniforms similar to those worn by the Shadow Fleet moved between control stations, but their technology looked different, more military and less elegant. Identify yourselves, a stern voice commanded. Jake looked up to see a woman in a general's uniform pointing a weapon at them. I'm Commander Jake Morrison from Earth, Jake said carefully. Admiral Carter of the Shadow Fleet sent us to make contact with other human strongholds. The woman's expression changed immediately. Carter is still alive? We lost contact with the Shadow Fleet decades ago. We thought the Devourers had found them. She introduced herself as General Susan Clark, commander of what she called the Iron Haven Defense Force. As she led them through her station, Jake could see that these humans had taken a very different approach to hiding from the Devourers. We don't use pocket dimensions, General Clark explained. Too easy for the Devourers to detect once they learn the technology. We hide in normal space using stealth and mobility instead of dimensional barriers. Elena was fascinated by their technology. Your ships use completely different principles than the Shadow Fleet vessels. We had to adapt, General Clark said grimly. The Devourers learned how to track dimensional portals. They've corrupted or destroyed every human colony that relied on that technology. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying the Shadow Fleet is in danger? More than danger, General Clark replied. The Devourers have been hunting dimensional technology users for centuries. The Shadow Fleet's portal network makes them the biggest target in the galaxy. She led them to a briefing room where she showed them star charts that painted a grim picture. Red marks indicated human colonies that had been destroyed or corrupted. There were hundreds of them. The Devourers don't just consume resources, General Clark explained. They learn. Every human colony they capture teaches them more about how we think, how we fight, and how we hide. Elena studied the charts with growing horror. If they've learned to track portal technology, then the Shadow Fleet isn't safe. And Earth is the ultimate prize, General Clark finished. The Devourers have been moving toward Earth for decades, but they've been taking time to corrupt every human colony along the way. They want to understand us completely before they make their final attack. Jake thought about the battle raging around Earth and the Shadow Fleet's confident use of portal technology. We have to warn Admiral Carter. It may be too late, General Clark said. Our long-range sensors detected massive Devourer fleet movements toward Earth's sector. They're not just attacking your planet. They're moving to surround and capture the entire Shadow Fleet. Elena checked her scanner readings from the corrupted colony they had visited. The corrupted humans we met said the Devourers wanted to show Jake something. What if it's not about converting him? What if they want to use him to get to the Shadow Fleet? General Clark nodded grimly. Jake, the fact that the ancient portal systems respond to your genetic signature makes you incredibly valuable. The Devourers could use you to access every human stronghold in the galaxy. Jake realized the terrible truth. By traveling through the portal network, he might have led the Devourers straight to the remaining free human colonies. And if the Devourers could track portal technology as General Clark claimed, Then the Shadow Fleet's emergence to defend Earth had been exactly what the aliens wanted. "They've been hurting us," Jake said slowly. "All of this, the attack on Earth, forcing the Shadow Fleet to reveal itself, it's all been part of a plan to capture all of humanity's hidden technology at once." General Clark activated a communication system. "I'm contacting every free human settlement I can reach. If the Devourers are making their final move, we need to coordinate our defenses." Over the next hour, Jake and Elena learned the full scope of humanity's hidden civilization. There were dozens of secret colonies scattered across the galaxy, each one using different methods to hide from the Devourers. Some used stealth technology like the Iron Haven Defense Force, others hid in asteroid belts or on planets that were difficult to detect. But General Clark's worst fears were confirmed when reports started coming in from across the galaxy. Devourer fleets were moving simultaneously toward every known human stronghold. "This is it," General Clark said grimly. "The final battle. They're going to try to capture or corrupt every free human in the galaxy at the same time." Elena looked up from her analysis of the incoming reports. "Jake, there's something else. The energy patterns I'm seeing suggest that the Devourers aren't just using corrupted human technology. They're using it to power something much larger." "What kind of something?" Jake asked. Jake stood in the command center of Iron Haven as reports came in from across the galaxy. Every human colony was under attack simultaneously. The Devourers had indeed made their final move, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. Elena was working frantically at a computer station, her fingers flying over controls she was still learning to use. "Jake, I've been analyzing the Devourer attack patterns. They're not trying to destroy us quickly. They're herding our fleets toward specific locations." General Clark pointed at a huge display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Devourer fleets, while blue dots showed human colonies and ships. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. "They're driving all of our forces toward the Shadow Realm," General Clark said grimly. "They want to capture all of humanity's advanced technology in one location." Jake's communicator crackled with Admiral Carter's voice. "Jake, we're seeing massive dimensional distortions around the Shadow Realm. The Devourers are using corrupted portal technology to create a trap we can't escape from." "That's exactly what we need," Jake replied, surprising everyone in the room. Elena looked at him like he had lost his mind. "Jake, if they trap the Shadow Fleet, humanity loses its most advanced ships and weapons." "No," Jake said with growing confidence. "We use their trap against them. Elena, can you create a feedback loop in the portal network?" Elena thought for a moment, then her eyes went wide with understanding. "You want to overload their dimensional trap, but that would require coordinating every portal in the galaxy simultaneously." General Clark caught on to Jake's plan. "And the only way to do that is to have every human colony working together. The Devourers think they're herding us into a trap, but will turn their own trap into a weapon." Over the next few hours, a plan took shape that was more audacious than anything humanity had ever attempted. Every surviving human colony in the galaxy would coordinate their actions for the first time in 2,000 years. Admiral Carter's voice came through clearly as the Shadow Fleet worked to implement their part of the plan. "Jake, we're in position. The Devourers have surrounded the Shadow Realm with corrupted portal technology. Just as you predicted, Elena had spent hours working with human scientists from dozens of colonies, calculating the exact timing needed for their plan to work. Everyone needs to activate their portal systems at exactly the same moment or the feedback loop won't work." Jake spoke into his communicator, addressing human forces across the galaxy. "This is Commander Morrison. In 60 seconds, we're going to show the Devourers what happens when humanity stops hiding and starts fighting back." The countdown began. On cue. Earth President White and General Hayes watched as Shadow Fleet vessels took positions around the planet. In the Shadow Realm, Admiral Carter prepared to activate every portal in their network. Across the galaxy, human colonies that had been isolated for centuries worked together for the first time. 10 seconds, Elena announced. Jake thought about everything that had led to this moment. The discovery under the Antarctic ice, the revelation of humanity's hidden civilization, the corruption of human colonies by an ancient enemy. Now it all came down to one coordinated action. Activate now, Jake commanded. Every portal in the galaxy opened simultaneously. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The Devourers had been using corrupted portal technology to create dimensional barriers around human strongholds, but suddenly those barriers became conductors for massive amounts of energy. Elena watched her instruments in amazement. The feedback loop is working. The Devourers' own corrupted portals are channeling energy from our network. But the Devourers realized what was happening and began to adapt. Their largest ships started redirecting the energy feedback toward their massive weapon, the one Elena had detected earlier. They're trying to use our attack to power their galaxy corruption weapon, Elena warned. That's when the second part of Jake's plan activated. Admiral Carter's voice rang out across all communication channels. All human forces, begin Phase 2. Show them what we've really been building for 2,000 years. From the Shadow Realm emerged ships unlike anything seen before. These weren't just the warships that had defended Earth. These were vessels designed for one specific purpose, to destroy Devourer technology permanently. Captain Brooks commanded one of the new ships, a vessel called the Reality's End. Target their central command ship, he ordered his crew. Let's end this war. The new human weapons didn't just attack the Devourer ships. They attacked the very principles that made Devourer technology work. Weapons that could unweave the quantum bonds, holding corrupted matter together. Devices that could reverse the biological changes the Devourers made to their victims. Jake watched through his communicator's display as the corrupted humans he had encountered earlier began to change back. The gray tint left their skin. Their eyes became normal and their voices returned to human tones. The corruption is reversible, Elena said in wonder. The Shadow Fleet found a way to cure it. But the battle was far from over. The Devourer fleet was enormous, and they had spent centuries absorbing the technology of conquered civilizations. They began to adapt to the new human weapons, just as they had adapted to everything else. That's when Jake realized the final truth about humanity's hidden civilization. Elena, he said quietly, the Shadow Fleet wasn't just preparing to fight the Devourers. They were preparing to save everyone the Devourers had ever conquered. Admiral Carter confirmed his suspicions. Jake, we've been in contact with dozens of alien species that the Devourers corrupted or enslaved. They're all fighting alongside us now. Across the galaxy, the true scope of the battle became clear. It wasn't just humans fighting the Devourers. It was every free species in the galaxy, coordinated through the human portal network, using weapons designed by the combined knowledge of dozens of civilizations. The Devourers found themselves facing not just humanity's hidden fleets, but liberation forces from every species they had ever conquered. Their corrupted victims were being cured and turning against them. Their stolen technology was being used against them by people who understood it better than they did. Elena's scanners detected something incredible happening at the center of the battle. Jake, the Devourer's central command ship is losing cohesion. Their core technology is breaking down. Jake realized what was happening. They're parasites. They can only use stolen technology, not create their own. Now that their victims are fighting back with weapons specifically designed to counter corruption, the Devourers have nothing left. The end came faster than anyone had expected. The Devourer fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just hours before, began to collapse as their corrupted technology failed and their enslaved victims broke free. Without the ability to drain energy from their enemies, the Devourers were just another species, and not a particularly advanced one. Admiral Carter's voice came through the communicator with obvious relief. All human forces. This is Admiral Carter. The Devourer threat has been eliminated. The galaxy is free. Jake stood in Ironhaven's command center and watched as the display showed Devourer ships surrendering or fleeing across the galaxy. But more importantly, it showed something else. Human ships from dozens of colonies meeting each other for the first time in centuries. Elena looked up from her instruments with tears in her eyes. Jake, I'm reading portal activations everywhere. The human colonies are connecting with each other. The isolation is over. General Clark smiled the first time Jake had seen her look happy. The Shadow Fleet is opening permanent portals between all human settlements. We're reuniting humanity after 2,000 years of separation. Over the following weeks, Jake traveled through the portal network, but this time as a coordinator rather than a scout. He helped human colonies share technology, resources, and knowledge that had been kept separate for millennia. Elena worked with scientists from across the galaxy to study and improve the portal technology. We're not just reconnecting human settlements, she told Jake during one of their trips. We're creating a network that can connect any species that wants to join it. The galaxy is going to be more united than ever before. Back on Earth, President White addressed a planet that was still trying to understand what had happened. The threat to our world is over, she announced. But more than that, we've learned that Earth was never alone. Humanity has been protecting the galaxy for thousands of years, and now we can take our place openly among the stars. Jake found himself appointed as the first director of Galactic Human Coordination, a job he never could have imagined when he was investigating energy readings under Antarctic ice. Elena became the head of the new Galactic Portal Research Institute, working to connect not just human colonies, but any species that wanted to join the growing network of free civilizations. Admiral Carter and the Shadow Fleet emerged from their pocket dimension to help rebuild the galaxy. Their centuries of preparation had saved not just humanity, but dozens of species that had been enslaved by the Devourers. Captain Brooks took command of the new exploration fleets that would map the galaxy and make contact with species that had been isolated by Devourer attacks for centuries. The corrupted human colonies were restored, their populations cured and reconnected with the rest of humanity.